I cannot stand Mr. Baseball.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
I knew it.
Here we go.
Yeah, I tried to throw a little bit back at it.
Love that logo, love that jersey, love that color scheme, everything about it.
Welcome back for the second half. Now, this one is an interesting one, I feel, because of basically what it is. It's a what if. What if of sports. Like, what if somebody didn't catch the ball and, or wasn't at the game that day, would have won because of an incident at the game? Like I saw on a list there, I think there was a Cubs fan that caught the ball.
Oh, Bartman.
Over. Yep, that's it.
I feel bad for that guy.
So, what if he wasn't there? Would he have caught it? Would they would have won? Who knows? So, the what if topic. So, Jason, what do you got?
No, I want you to start on this one.
Want me to start? Okay.
Go ahead.
So, I picked what if Gretzky wasn't traded to Los Angeles? Now, him being traded to Los Angeles was very big for the hockey community because hockey really was not big in the U.S. at that time. It was mainly a big in the Canadian league, in the Canadian.
It was regionally big in certain cities like Philly.
It wasn't. I mean,
Minnesota, Chicago.
It wasn't big as what it is today. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Where Edmonton was an extremely dominated, a dominating team. Dominating. And they actually made a 30 for 30 on the trade of ESPN 30 for 30. It's called King's Ransom. It's very, I think it was one of the first ones that they did for the 30 for 30 series. Ones. And it was a very good series a very good documentary for it. On the whole trade. And one of the questions that were asked was, if you would have stayed, what would have happened? And I think Gretzky's answer was probably won a couple more cups because he walked away with 4 from Edmonton and haven't won one since. Yeah. So to me, that's a big what if. Would he have won more? I feel they would have. Would hockey be as popular, as big in the U.S.? It probably would have been delayed, and not like when the trade happened and he went to L.A. The popularity rose then. It would have, happened years down the road, but
him moving to L.A. I mean. LA, Hollywood, it's the center of the media universe. Well, not just for the wet. I mean, to some degree, New York is part of that, but it's really LA.
Well, yeah.
And LI, if anyone watches Letterkenny.
Shoresy.
But
well, no, Los Angeles is a center point of all of Hollywood, all of media, all of everything, because even in the 30 for 30, they showed like all the celebrities are going to the Kings games now and things like that. So it would have delayed, if he would not have been traded, it would have highly delayed the popularity in the U.S. as it is today, than it is today. Right. Highly delayed it. It probably wouldn't be as. I mean, it might be. Who knows? I mean, at this point, like again, it's a what if. But would the Kings have gone to the Cup in '93? Would they have? If Gretzky didn't show up.
Let's throw this out there. Gretzky doesn't go to L.A. Does the NHL expand into more southern? Warm climate areas? Do they go to San Jose? Do they have the Panthers? Yeah.
Do they have the Stars?
Do they have the Lightning?
I mean, do they have the Coyotes at that point?
No. The Coyotes barely function now.
Coyotes is a different beast on its own.
How long until they're the Nordiques? Isn't that a rumor?
Well, I thought I sent you a link a while ago on that.
You did. That Quebec wants them back.
Quebec. You know,
I love that fishing in Quebec.
But it's just one of those things to where, what if Gretzky wasn't traded? Would we, like you said, would we have the Southern teams? Would we have had the popularity now, being that he went and it got all that publicity? It's one of the things, like, you want to see. Too bad there's not a way to jump into a different timeline to see that. Well, just to see what the outcome would be, just to see that. I mean, it would be interesting. You know, I mean, like I said, what?
You got to think. This is in the article. If there's no Gretzky on the West, you don't have the 2012, 2014 Kings, no 07 Ducks.
You don't have a lot of that.
Think of all the trade moves that we talked about last year.
Right, we did talk about that.
The Gretzky trade tree finally came to an end.
Right, I forgot we did that. I forgot about that. Yes, you're right.
I mean, there's a whole other timeline where there's players who never were on certain teams.
Yes, the Gretzky trade, the good old Gretzky trade tree. Yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, that alone and thing is, though, have the life-changing experience that those players might have had.
Because there were players on the 14 Kings who were part of the trade tree.
Cups that might never have been if the trade didn't happen. I mean, you never know those things, but still, it's just, again, it's just, it'll just make you think.
Right.
It just makes you think of, like, what if he didn't get traded? What if they didn't have the Kings, the Kings' popularity? What if the Ducks never showed up? What if, and hell, who knows if the Mighty Ducks movies have been made?
Right.
Because
Disney would have taken an interest in the sport.
What relevance would they have had to West Coast hockey? What relevance? Because when the original six was formed, Boston, Detroit, New York Rangers, those were really the U.S. teams for that. I mean,
yeah.
You didn't hear anything really out west. Only the eastern side. Western was really, even now, even to now, there's not that many Western teams as there are on the West Coast that there are on the East Coast.
Right.
So was the Gretzky trade the reasoning behind the Southern states getting those teams? Because of, hell, you can have hockey in warm climates. Hell, look when they played the outdoor game at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
In the first stadium.
A lot of that exists because of Gretzky going to the Kings.
I mean, I think he still would have been called the Great One at this point. But then again, what if they skipped the Kings and went straight to St. Louis?
That was part of the...
Or straight to...
There was that opportunity.
Or straight to New York.
Well, I think if he went to New York, and we still have another one to get to here, but if he went to New York, I think it would have the same effect on the sport as it would have if he had gone to LA. Again, because New York is the largest media market. It's New York and LA. LA just happens to have more celebrities and more media places, but New York is the larger media as far as people viewing and actively being involved and watching. So you'd have more potentially eyes on Gretzky playing in, and think about this. He wouldn't be playing in the Forum in New York. He'd be playing in Madison frickin' Square Garden, which is the most famous arena in the world.
But then again, though, if he would have went straight to New York, you wouldn't have. You may have the West Coast teams now, but the popularity would have taken how many years to come about?
I might disagree on the overall popularity on the sport because, again, they're the two biggest media markets.
Yeah, but on the West Coast,
he's helping to grow the sport.
Yeah,
on the West Coast, there's that possibility.
Yeah, exactly. He if he goes straight to New York, he's growing down the East Coast.
But now think about this though. Think about this. He goes to New York, biggest media market in the States. More eyes on hockey on a national level. More people are going to want to watch hockey on a local level. It'll grow the sport that way because the demand for teams will be there. The NHL will still grow. They'll still eventually make their way to those places. I mean, LA already had the team. It's not like LA brought him in and built the team. The team was there. They brought him in to play on the team that existed. San Jose came later. Anaheim came later. So you may not have had the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. You might have had the Atlanta Mighty Ducks. You don't know. Or the Orlando Mighty Ducks. Because Disney. Because, it's Disney. But I think if he goes to New York, it's essentially the same situation.
Yeah, but the West Coast would kind of take longer to grow the popularity of it.
Maybe.
I mean, it'd still be there. The popularity of him growing the sport will be there in New York, absolutely. It's just growing the West Coast popularity. Who knows? What do you got?
No, I'm going to talk about one of my all-time favorite athletes. What if Bo Jackson doesn't have the hip joint injury in '91?
Good old Bo Jackson.
I in the article they talk about maybe he leads the Raiders to a couple of Super Bowls, and maybe he becomes a Hall of Fame baseball player. Look, I'm partial. I think he should have just been a one-sport athlete, but I mean, he was such an amazing natural athlete that I think he would have played at a high level in both sports. I don't think he would have stayed with the Raiders. I think he would have eventually ended up on the Cowboys in the 90s with a Super Bowl ring or two. I say that with a sigh because it's the Cowboys, but the Cowboys got free agent top tier talent during that time period. You can't tell me they wouldn't have made a run for Bo Jackson.
Oh, they probably would have.
And I will say this, he still played baseball well after his football injury. He retired from baseball in 1994 because of the strike. And by that point, he was just, he's mainly a DH. He wasn't out in the field like he was before the injury. I mean, before the injury, we all saw the clip of him running up the outfield wall to catch a ball.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Imagine he's not injured. He doesn't have that freak hip injury. He's still playing at a high level. Again, you can't tell me the Yankees or the Braves aren't going to go after him when they're making their World Series runs and he's a free agent.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're going to why wouldn't you?
He would be in both Hall of Fames had he stayed healthy. I have no doubt about it. And because he was such a gifted natural athlete, he wouldn't have gotten popped for steroids. So here's a guy who could just nail dingers whenever he wanted to, was just a freak as far as athleticism. You may not have had the battle for Maris because Bo Jackson existed.
Yeah, he was just one of those athletes that, like I said, a naturally gifted athlete, which it's hard to find those types of athletes that can do both sports and actually do them well.
I mean, if you go, it's on ESPN Plus. If you watch his 30 for 30, there's a 30 for 30 about Bo Jackson. His high school coach was talking about Bo on a dare hurdling cars in the school parking lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that now.
running and hurtling cars in the school parking lot as a teenager.
That's
for all the people out there who want to say he was using roids, you mean to tell me as a teenager he was using roids? I think he just happened to be an extremely gifted athlete, a generational talent who got injured.
With the body structure that he had, the body structure that he had to be that athlete.
Right.
Gifted to have that body structure to be able to do that, because some players, they may be gifted athletes but don't have the body structure he did, the muscle mass that he had to play football and baseball.
He was blessed with natural athletic ability. He was a freak of nature. And I get that people don't want to buy into that because of what we've seen in the years since Bo retired from sports. I think you don't have that. You don't have any of the steroid era if Bo Jackson exists.
Yeah, he probably would have been tested every single day. Because people probably would have thought he's on something, but he just naturally is that gifted.
That might have been far-fetched for me. You probably would have the steroid era because you're going to have guys
trying to keep up with him.
Try to compete. Yes, keep up with him, exactly. So you'll still have Sammy Sosa, and you'll still have Mark McGwire, and you'll have Barry Bonds throwing away his natural talent because he had a hissy fit that he had a career year in 1998 and all people cared about were Bonds and Sosa. Instead, he'd be upset because all people would be caring about is Bo Jackson on either the Braves or the Yankees winning rings. Because, look, I love the Phils, but the Phils were a shit show during that time period. He wasn't going to Philly. Okay?
At least you're honest with it.
I'm just calling it how I grew up with it, okay? I mean, Mike Lieberthal, I don't know if you watched the game the other week when they honored the 83 and 93 teams.
No, I missed that.
But Mike Lieberthal, who was Dalton's backup catcher in 93, and when Dalton left, Lieberthal became the full-time catcher. He said on the air, he's like, look, I played on some god-awful teams when I was here. Like, he was upfront about it. And that's what I loved. Like, don't lie. Like, we're aware of the teams we watched. Bo would have gone to a contender had he stayed in baseball. And he would have gone to a contender had he stayed in football. I don't think he was leading the Raiders to the promised land. I think he would have left L.A., and gone to a contender, and I think, sadly, that contender was probably going to be the Cowboys.
Yeah, because
they'll
go where the money is.
Then again, maybe he goes to the Bills, and he's the guy to get them over the hump.
Maybe he was the guy that would have got, like you said, went to the Bills, maybe beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, maybe there is no Cowboys dynasty because he goes to the Bills, and they actually win a Super Bowl. I still think his biggest impact would have been in baseball, though, because he was such an amazing baseball player to watch. And anyone who doubts me, go look up the 1989 All-Star Game, because that was basically the Bo Jackson show. He stole that game.
Well, Bo Jackson was first pick overall for the in the NFL draft. So I mean, that's
just a freak of nature. I mean, man, people forget. Like, there's an entire generation of sports fans who don't even understand Bo Jackson at his height. Think about just one thing alone. Bo knows. That was an entire Nike campaign. Bo knows.
Oh yeah, it was. Oh yeah.
Dare I say he was just as big for Nike during that time period as Michael Jordan.
Bo Knows was an advertising campaign for Nike cross-training shoes that ran from 89 to 90 and featured professional baseball and American football player Bo Jackson. It was used as an advertising campaign for EA Sports Madden 22. So Jackson was the first athlete in the modern era to play professional baseball and football in the same year. The same year. Mind you. Now, okay, I'm done with football. Let's try this. Okay, I'm doing it well, so I'll stuck with it for a while.
I mean, think about this. What is Deion Sanders' trajectory if Bo Jackson stays healthy? Because I'm going to throw this out there. Who benefited the most from Bo Jackson getting injured? Because there were only two dual sport athletes during that time period. And one was Deion Sanders and the other was Bo Jackson.
When did Michael Jordan?
Deion.
I was going to say, when did Michael Jordan do his?
No, he didn't do two sports in 1 year.
No, not 1 year.
But he played baseball in 94.
I should say try to do two sports, I should say.
But you know what? Again, another 30 for 30. Jordan rides the bus. Jordan was probably going to play in Major League Baseball at some point had he stuck with it. And it wasn't that Jordan was naturally good. It was Jordan's work ethic that was going to make it happen.
Well, he always had a good work ethic. He always did.
Because he'd play a full 9 innings and then stay for another 2 to 3 hours just working on his hitting or working on his fielding. That's just his mentality. He was not going to let anyone outwork him, and he was going to never let himself dog it. Man, that's a good man. Who benefits from it? It's Deion. Sorry, I'm going back to that.
No, that's
because does Deion get the Cowboys deal if Bo Jackson is still there?
Because Deion played for the Yankees in '89. That was his debut. And his last was 2001 with the Reds.
Yep. There's so many different angles, man.
Oh my God! Well, that's anything y'all have. So many different angles.
Oh,
you know.
Do you remember? Since we're talking about Bo, do you remember the Bo Jackson LCD game from Tiger Electronics?
I want to say yes.
It had two ends. One end you could play 2-player, but one end was football and one end was baseball.
Yes.
That's how popular the guy was. And like I said, there's a whole generation. No idea. They have no clue.
Well,
and let me tell you, kids, not that there's any kids listening to this, but let me tell you.
Let me tell you something.
Are spoiled by having your, a Nintendo Switch that you can play both at home and on the go. Because we had LCD games pre-Game Boy, and all they did was just bips and bloops, man.
The good old NES, where you were your own technician. I mean,
throw in it.
That's what you had to do, and it worked.
And then 40 years later, you're like, oh, shit, I wasn't supposed to do that.
But it worked, didn't it?
Because it was getting the dust particle. The NES was what we got in America. It was deeply flawed compared to the Famicom in Japan. Because had it been top loading, we wouldn't have had so many issues.
I remember with my NES having to stick I think I put a Matchbox car in it just to keep the game down, just to keep the cartridge down, so it actually worked. Blowing in it so many times, taking an old toothbrush and running it through it, blowing into the actual system itself. You turn into your own technician at that point.
Yeah.
I miss some of the games for NES. But I think one of the biggest ones, though, Bo Jackson played in was Tecmo Bowl. That was the biggest one that he was featured in.
Let's talk about that.
Would he have been featured in that game if he would have stuck with
he would have because he was...
Yeah, but if he didn't do the two sports and just stuck with one, just went to baseball.
He wouldn't have been in the game.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying though, like, what if he didn't do the dual sports at that point? Would those games be as popular today as they are?
Well, that's a good point. So
Because
the whole reason he was
there. I think Bo Jackson wasn't he on the cover? Like on the cover of the game?
So the first Tecmo Bowl.
I'm trying to remember the games. It's been that long.
The first Tecmo Bowl for the NES was not affiliated with the NFL. It was affiliated with the NFL Players Association. So it didn't have the actual teams in it. It had a city, and each city had their own unique logo in the game, and that's why you could play as LA and you could play as Bo Jackson, but they weren't actually the Raiders in the game because it was through the Players Association, not the NFL itself.
Gotcha. I must
Tecmo Super Bowl was the first one.
That's probably what I was thinking.
Actually had an NFL license.
That's probably what I was thinking.
So the whole reason Bo is as fast as he is in the game is that when they were designing the game, they were basing the player's attributes on their stats. So because Bo had certain stats that were much higher than other players, that's why he ended up as fast as he was, because he was at such a different level than everyone else.
Well, it's fun though, is he was actually on a. Do you remember Pro Stars?
Yes, him, Gretzky, ironically
and
enough,
Jordan,
and Michael Jordan. They didn't voice themselves though; they had other people voice them. But
that would be cool if they did voice themselves though.
I mean, let's go down this road. So, I know some people listening are wrestling fans and remember Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. Do you know who voiced the Junkyard Dog on Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling?
Jackson?
Uncle Phil from the Fresh Prince, who
Really?
was also the Shredder.
It's hard to imagine that. Just because of the voice, you don't normally think of it.
And then the voice of Hulk Hogan was Brad Garrett, who played Robert on Everybody Loves Raymond.
Jeez.
Everyone's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, Bo had a couple of games on of his own. I had one. I had Bo Jackson Baseball for the NES.
Yep. I think I've had that one too. He actually was an unlockable player in ESPN's NFL Football.
That's awesome.
He also appeared in the 2004 game NFL Street 2. And he later returned in NFL 20 as part of the Ultimate Team 10 anniversary promo. I have the Wikipedia up, by the way.
Oh, I've assumed as much.
So he came back in other games.
Yeah, he's still getting paid. That's good. I mean, and one thing I really took away from that 30 for 30 before we wrap this up is he just seems like he's a good person.
And that's sometimes hard to find in players too, especially of talent, because they think they're just above everybody. Some players.
Well, that was a bit of a topic this week in one of my group chats. We were talking about the topic of hero worship comes up a lot, and talking about bad personality traits, we'll say. And I said, Michael Jordan, for all his success, still an insecure dude, because why would you invite the coach that cut you from the team to your Hall of Fame ceremony to make a point to say something to him unless you still have some hangups about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you have all this success, you can let it go. Just let it go.
Yes, like he was wrong.
But like that made me think about, all the heat Charles Barkley got in the early 90s for doing those commercials for Nike and saying, I'm not a role model. He's right. He's not a role model. Michael Jordan is not a role model. They're just athletes. They're as flawed as you and me.
Except they're more viewed under a microscope than you and me.
Right, but they're also celebrated and told to be role models because Kids watch them.
Yeah, that's...
So, I mean, just going back to the whole Bo Jackson thing, like, seeing that he's a good person made me happy that he's someone who I still consider to be a great athlete.
Yeah, like I said, like we said, is a freak of nature just because of what he was. Yeah, you know what I mean. For what he did.
I don't think he's hurdling cars at the age of 60.
No. I think that's kind of past him. But
if he could, but
who knows if he could? Who knows at this point? That's where that's probably his morning routine. What am I gonna do this morning here? Drink a cup of coffee, maybe hurdle a couple of cars. Why not? What the hell?
I thought a TV news reporter, a little throw pillow. That's a deep cut if anyone's paying attention. All right. Well, I think I'm good on this one. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. It's getting late here. All right. Let's give a quick plug to the 2216 podcast with our friend Dave Locker, who will be a guest on here at some point in the near future. Again, he had a lot of fun hanging out with us, and we've hung out a few times in real life. He's one of the hosts. It is him and his two buddies, Greg and Jake. They talk about life as a small town rural firefighter. They share stories about their time being first responders. And it's just really good topics and discussions. I mean, I'm not someone who's in that world, but I do check it out because I enjoy their back and forth, their rapport with each other. You can find the 2216 podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Give them a listen to. You don't have to be involved as a first responder to get something from their discussions. The Other Ship is the pop culture podcast with a pro wrestling lean. Join the Other Ship team as they talk movies, sports, music, TV, food, and of course pro wrestling. The rotating group of co-hosts take on various topics in a roundtable discussion, interviews, innovative concepts, as well as they invite special guests to join the conversation. You can always laugh your ass off with the guys on a fantastic voyage known as The Other Ship. You can find The Other Ship wherever you get your podcasts as well. I will be joining them next weekend at some point to do a sports movie discussion. We've had a few of those on here. So if you listen on here and you end up listening there, you're going to hear about a lot of the same movies I've already talked about. But I'll be on. I don't know when that one will drop, but they tend to pre-record and have stuff in the bank, so they're not always recording just to get it uploaded. Yeah, they bank some stuff. It's smart. We're not smart.
No.
No one ever accused us of it.
No.
All right. So with that, thank you for joining us for episode 74 of the Not Another Sports Podcast. You can find us online on the Linktree link in the description of our episodes. Go there to click wherever you want to visit us, find us, talk to us, interact with us. Please, God, send us a message.
We're lonely.
We are. You can also find us on YouTube, where we've had some recent success on there with our NHL hits discussion. Again, we appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch or listen to us. It means a lot.
Absolutely.
You can also find us for streaming or download at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, iTunes, Audible, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora. Things that don't even I know the names of. We're everywhere. We're live. We're nationwide and worldwide even. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, or review. With that, we'll talk with you next time.
Have a good one.